just because of lack of harmonization even at the national level. I know definitely that some level of protectionism comes out because of influence in some instances. I don't think partner states come out on its own to say, no, we are going to do this in order to prevent goods from or services from this country. But because of influence emanating from maybe the players, the key players within that sector, may cause it. But there are also some distortions that we have in both the customs union and the common market. I think when we established these integration levels of EAC, we did it at the regional level and created some institutions at the regional level. But the main implementing agencies, the main implementing actors of these protocols are at the national level. And the institutions which are at the national level still have the outfits, national outfits. They were never realigned to take on the role of implementing regional programs. So there is that kind of mismatch. You'll find that we say bureaus of standards are supposed now to harmonize and take on the new approach from a regional perspective, or customs has to implement the regional law. But the whole structure of, if you look at customs at the national level, remains national in terms of reporting, in terms of target making, in terms of priority. Then at the regional level, you're talking about trade facilitation, open borders. At the national level, Minister of Finance is setting targets. So you find that kind of conflict. So the institutional mechanism and of course the operating environment keeps on also changing, that it influences the way NTB, and you find NTBs, just that one becoming a fertile ground for those NTBs.
Mr. Moshe, you want to jump in?
I just wanted to add that the leaders who sat here in the morning were sufficiently polite not to have really said that part of the confusion is also within the private sector. You know, they were saying it's largely between the private sector coming to them and kind of putting different ideas. But you know, when I was the chairman of the Confederation of Tanzania Industries, I had a group of investors who would come to me and say, we have to increase tariff on this. And as soon as they leave my office, I hear from the secretary another group has come. And this group, who are also my members, have come to tell me, you have to eliminate the tariff. You know, this is the same situation in the same country.
Same sectors and maybe even perhaps...
Precisely. But invariably it happens that one produces the raw material, the other one wants to import the raw material, and they know that under CET, these are going to be the conditions. So they come with this conflicting situation. So actually, even as a chairman, you find yourself quarreling with your own membership, much less between them and the government. And they want you as chairman to now go to the government with these contradictory conditions. So, but what we are also saying, what we need to, and I think I'll alluded to this, we also have to create a business culture, a culture of business, a safeguarding national interests, not just a business that seeks to profit, but business that also looks at what are the national interests here. And that is why when we say buy East Africa, build East Africa, we also have to know that we have a long way to go and a lot of work to do. Because in other situations, other things being equal, those people will buy their product, not in our situation. So we have a long way to go and a lot of work to do. But as I'm saying, we in the private sector must operate in such a way that we also pursue policies which safeguard national interests. and then at the East African level, which takes account of East Africa as one and our integration as being critical to our development.
Common purpose, common ideas into policy making, if I got you correctly. And actually it all goes into what Dennis Carrera also mentioned, simple aspects like even, taxes and really how, we can actually merge the two, and that's integrated in terms of what you mentioned about debt. I'm looking at Richard. I know Richard, of course, served into in the Uganda Revenue Authority. He's an expert in tax. I don't know, during the opening session, I'm going to come to you maybe to just give your input on that, because, from the private sector says, if you cannot get that out of the way, how do we, focus towards a monetary union? Dennis, this is just expounding into what you said in the morning, just looking towards, the opportunity, the hindrances. Here we are, we just signed in a continental free trade area. There's a lot of push to it. From where you sit, you feel that if we do not make hay while the sun still shines, then we're going to lose out. What's causing us not to actually act fast and take advantage of this low-hanging fruit?
I don't know whether you have it.
I think let me just give you my microphone. You can use it.
To me, there are simple things and steps to go through. The one I pointed on earlier is, as a private sector, we must admit, we are disorganized. Simple. And it takes organization simply to be where I want to be. We simply need to sit and be organized, think together, have shared vision. I think Bakamunda makes a very important, pertinent point. It appears to me like the integration plan, the common market protocol, there's one leg here in the region to integrate, especially in the rhetoric. There's another leg in action. And so we are 50-50 there. Reason why we budget nationally, we think nationally, we go back to our national legal frameworks and operate as a country. And then we also want to participate in the region and I wish to change things at regional level when clearly you do not wish to give in all. So we kind of say two languages. There's a language we use for Eabc. There's also a language we use when we fall back to our different chapters. Look, recently I had an opportunity to have a conversation with two chairpersons from two different countries, private sector federation chairs. They did not even know each other, leave alone having a common program. They don't know each other. So you have a chairperson in one country, doesn't know the other. They have never met, they have not had coffee, they have not had a shared conversation on a regional strategic vision. Nothing. So how do you go from that? How do you move it forward? It calls therefore for us, and I keep saying we risk now being out of step with what the world expects of us. I can tell you, time is a very merciless aspect. Time, if you don't work with it, it always moves past you, and it leaves you in a worse situation than it found you. So time is going to go past us. Today we are talking about the East African Monetary Union. Last week, there was a lot of discussion in the room in Kigali about the African Monetary Union. Now, which one are we going to go with? Bagamunda was there. We were discussing in the corridors as which currency are we going to go with? If we have gone to the common market of the entire continent, are we going to go East African currency? Or now that is out of step, it is an irrelevant discussion, we now go to the African currency, which will therefore mean new legislation, thinking beyond liberating the currencies in West Africa from legislation in Paris, so that decisions are made in West Africa. I'm sure it is common knowledge here. Some currencies on the continent are not determined by Africans. And we are urged this afternoon to wear African. I hope we don't find ourselves in that situation. So there are all these controversies. Are we now going to remain East African? My take is it might be too late to keep in the discussion of the East African Monetary Union when we are going African now. we might want to think of the African currency. I don't know how long it took United States to create $1, and it's the US dollar for the entire USA. Why not think now of the the African, whether dollar or whatever we call it. So these are challenges that we have to go through. But clearly back to the private sector, what is clear is, can we, at our stage now, where we are, can we harmonize the operations of national chapters? Eabc does its part, but can we buy in? Can we understand that if we don't, it will be difficult for each country currently to position its currency on the continental level? It's going to be difficult. You can only weigh your currency against the dollar. You can only weigh your debt against the dollar. But positioning it on the continent, where is it going to be? And therefore, trade, therefore, is still going to remain difficult for as long as we cannot trade in the same currency. You know, trade in the region today, you have to, if you have to establish yourself in Kenya and you have a deal to do here, you have to convert, say me, I have to convert francs from Rwandan francs, buy dollars before I convert them into shillings of Kenya. The process through the 3 stages involves very often a loss. This loss is not accounted for in business. It's hard to account for that. By the time you move currency from the other, I know there has been an intention, and actually an attempt by Bank of Kigali, I remember, to trade francs in Kampala. If you are in Kampala now and you want to buy goods and your account is in francs, you can actually get francs in Kampala. I think that's the legacy of James Gatera in Bank of Kigali. Whether it still works today or not, I'm not quite updated. Now, you need, therefore, do we need to convert to Kenya shillings, then buy dollars, then buy goods, or can we go direct to a currency that you think serves us most? So these are conversations that we need to go through seriously as at the private sector. Let us have experts in this thing, let us have consultants. We sit down, map out a clear way forward, and agree on it, and all of us be on the same page, and we sign up to it, and then we move. Short of that, believe me, we'll spend another couple of years, and then need for the African currency will be here when we are discussing the East African currency.
Right, still continue to act fast. Ladies and gentlemen, let's appreciate our panelists on stage. It's just to get us all thinking. Remember, I just wanted to get a bit of input from you as well. That was just to get us started. But again, we'd want to make sure that it's also very participatory. I also want to recognize the president of Honorable Christophe Bazivamo, who's right on my left side. I don't know if you'd want to weigh in, but I'll quickly just want to pass on the mic. Let's appreciate Bazivamo, please, Honorable Bazivamo. Thank you. Richard, why I want to come to you is because, just mentioned, this issue is about taxes. Like it's one of those quick wins that we need to just get out of the way for us to trade amongst ourselves. Foreign exchange losses and what have you are also experienced by businessmen. So I don't know what will be your input because you're an experienced hand in this. I'm going to come to you. Can I please ask for an extra microphone, gentlemen? Yep, awesome.
We have been discussing mutual recognition agreements. I think this is a discussion that has gone on with every chair in Business Council. Out of the protectionist thinking, till today, we have not been able to secure mutual recognition agreements for the services across the region. It is still difficult. Lawyers from one country cannot freely operate in the other. The other day, we had the longest argument to have architects from the region be on the same platform. We sign an agreement, architects can work across the region. So the one critical thing that we need to do now, tomorrow, going forward, can we have mutual recognition agreements working? Can we engage the public sector? Can we engage the thorough engagement between the private and public sector? And we sign up to mutual recognition agreements. Sincerely, if we fail at that level, then what are we aspiring to do? Services across the region today cannot move easily because lawyers in Kenya and lawyers in Kampala here had this longest argument. One thinks they are going to take over the jobs of the other. So then you don't blame Nigerians if they don't sign up to the CFTA, if the lawyers here cannot work together. So that's a challenge that I think we need to wake up to as a region. That's what I want to say.
Thank you. I'm going to have a submission by Richard Kamajugo from Treatment.
Thank you very much. I think tax is a major issue in terms of being an impediment to the free movement of goods. At first, we were only talking about import duty. Yes, import duties were removed on intra-EAC trade. But then the issue that has come up again is the issue of the non-tariff barriers, which have been talked about. And the preference of some people saying, actually, we would rather have tariffs because we know what they are and we can quantify them and we can plan for them rather than the non-tariff barriers. Then when it comes to the other rates of tax, now the word I intended to talk about this, we talk a lot about the word local. What is local? If in East Africa, we still talk about local in the national context, you'll find in a local legislation, you have the word local to mean national. In the regional legislation, you have the word local to mean regional. So the word appears in both, but the meaning is different. So when we do that, it means competition is killed, because if you come from the other partner state, and we're still talking about East Africa alone before we get to the whole continent. Now those from the neighboring country, the partner state in East Africa, are deemed foreign. When you get into tourism and visiting the national parks and all these other things, we say, people, please move across. But then when you get to visit the national park, they say, foreigners, this, local, this. And local means national. The people from the region are treated as foreigners. So when the people from Europe even get the single visa, which takes you across the countries, they pay the same amount that as you from the neighboring country. So I think there is still a lot to change within our minds and get to accept that we are one, and taxes are one of those. So when we don't harmonize, you have a different rate of VAT here and another rate of VAT there. So how would you ever harmonize? What kind of accounting system is going to accommodate all these differences and be able to come out clearly? So I concur that tax harmonization should really be top on the agenda if we are to achieve our dreams and aspirations.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Richard. I'm just going to have the Honorable Bazibam also make his submission.
Thank you. I appreciate the interventions from the panel and the discussions so far we have held. And I think it is important, even if we are facing a lot of challenges, to appreciate what we have achieved so far. Because at the East African community level, we have tremendous positive achievements, which should actually encourage us to move even further. And here, when you speak about a single customs territory, when you speak about a single communication area, which is partly achieved among free partner states, when you speak about a common higher education area, which is a decision which has been already taken to facilitate this free movement of teachers and students, and now we are discussing this single aviation area. This is encouraging how far we are, but of course we are facing challenges. We should be in the, at the level of saying, let us commit more, make sure we increase what you have done so far and achieve better than we have achieved. And when it comes to legislation, we were thinking, and maybe I would wish to have comments from the panelists and audience. We have been thinking about when it comes to the full implementation of the common market protocol, which is in some cases challenging, especially when it comes to free movement of establishment